Ottawa is releasing its fall economic statement later today, but it could be overshadowed by the federal government's border plan. Well, today's fiscal update will reveal Canada's deficit along with new housing and economic measures. The update is coming as talk of tension between Freeland and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is growing. Meantime, Canadians are going to get a closer look at how Ottawa might be responding to Trump's tariff threats. Laurie Turnbull is an associate professor of political science at Dalhousie University, and she's joining us from Montreal this morning. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm in Ottawa, just to be totally
You are
factual.
in Ottawa. Listen, I've had you all over the country. Good morning, regardless.
Good morning.
Today's long-awaited fiscal update comes one day before the House breaks for the holidays. Why is the government choosing to include information on the border plan and the economic statement at the same time?
Right. I mean, it's a pretty packed Monday between those two things, and there's a by-election in British Columbia today as well. Right. All kinds of things going on. I think they're kind of at the end of the line for the economic update. If they're going to do it, it's got to be now, because as you say, the House is going to rise. This one has been a bit long to show up. There's been a lot of speculation about when the minister would do it. I think probably because of some of the jamming that's been happening in the House of Commons. They've had this motion of privilege that's taken over for most of the fall session, and so the timing of things has been a little bit difficult. But also, I think in terms of the border plan, that's going to take up a big chunk of change. And so they're not unrelated. I think in terms of the timing of that, same thing, right? Like they're running out of runway. They've got to put it down. They've got to get it out there, get people to understand it, and they've got to pitch it, so that Trump has some response to it at some point before January 20th, because that's when he'll be sworn in. And that's when he suggests he might go ahead with these tariffs.
Laurie, there's also reports out this morning that those $250 checks available to some Canadians may not be in this fiscal update.
Right. And so when that whole thing started, they were putting out the tax break that is in effect now in terms of the GST, and also the $250 checks that were going to come in the spring. That was originally floated as a kind of package, but then because of things that happened in the House of Commons, and there was questions around why those $250 checks didn't apply more broadly, that got pushed off. And so the vote that was going to be figured out at a later date. I'm thinking, for her, for Minister Freeland, if she doesn't have to put this item in this fiscal update, that helps her to get to a point of being a bit more having a fiscal anchor, having fiscal guardrails, and that's what she wanted for this economic update. I think she's in a really difficult position for many reasons, but it seems like there might have been some tension between there is many reports of tension between the finance minister's office and PMO, but one of the things could have been around the fact that she wasn't consulted enough on this particular measure, and so it could be that she doesn't want to put it in there, and it might also be that because there's no agreement on it yet, it's just not there.
A difference in vision. Trudeau is reportedly trying to woo former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney to join his government, adding to talk of this potential disagreement between Trudeau and Freeland on spending. So Freeland had previously said the deficit would not exceed $40.1 billion. Then in October, the parliamentary budget officer estimated the deficit's going to reach $46.8 billion. How could the idea that Freeland isn't behind her own economic statement affect how it's received?
I think there's a sense that the optics of the whole thing are very strange, as you say, because of this prolonged courtship with Mark Carney or whatever it is. And I'm sort of I'm feeling like this is the whole boy who cried wolf situation. Like I'll believe it when the guy shows up, because frankly, they've been having these conversations about getting Carney into cabinet for a long time. Yeah. The Prime Minister has admitted to them. But the fact that Freeland is going to stand up today and give this economic update, there's clear tension here. As far as I know, unless I've totally missed it, the PMO has not come out and said we have 100% confidence in Freeland and this stuff about Carney is all just rumors. And so that puts her in a position of standing there, and we don't really know if she has the confidence of the Prime Minister because he hasn't clarified it. And to me, that's really tough for her. I mean, especially at a time where also the promise she made, or the hope that she had, some combination of that she was going to maintain this $40 billion is not going to happen.
Right. Not to mention the win of President-elect Donald Trump, which changes things because now we've got to add things into this budget. What the premiers we know are meeting. What could Canada's premiers and Trump's team be watching for coming out of today's announcement? What might they want to see?
Well, sure. They're going to want to know, in terms of the details of this border plan, whether it meets Trump's expectations or whether it meets his threshold so that he doesn't go through with these tariffs. Now, the premiers are also going to be looking at what is the federal government doing? What kind of money are they putting up? Is this going to be enough? What sorts of implications is it going to have for them? So, for example, there were reports of an export tax over the weekend. Is that going to be there? Because if it is, that would have the effect of affecting some provinces and their exports a lot more than others. And so, as Danielle Smith has said, don't do the export tax, federal government, or else you'll have a national unity crisis on top of everything else. But how they see, what are their options in terms of dealing with Trump? Because I think even if we have a tight border plan, I don't think that's going to be enough to make Trump not go through with the tariffs. And so if he does go through with it, what is our response going to be to that?
Yeah, and then what will the Prime Minister's office response be if they decide to change tactic and change gears? Lots to watch for today, Laurie. Glad you're in Ottawa. Thanks so much.
Thank you, too. Take care.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.